Welcome to the Rise of the Trades podcast, the show dedicated to helping you to build, grow, and scale your trades or construction business. All rise for your host, Craig Wilkinson.
Welcome to this week's coaching episode of the Rise of the Trades podcast, where we help trades and construction business owners to skyrocket leads, explode net profits without having to graft 60 hours a week and becoming that busy fool. In this episode, I'm going to be teaching you how to structure your payment terms to avoid negative cash flow problems. But before we go there, I'd like to make an announcement. And the announcement is the doors are now open for you to apply to join my inner circle. To discover more about joining my marketing and business coaching program, please click the link in the description. Now, let's transition over to this week's coaching episode. One of the biggest challenges all business owners face along their journey is having to deal with negative cash flow problems. And I know in my early years after setting up my joinery business, I had some serious cash flow problems that I had to deal with. I remember those sleepless nights where I'd be laid awake at night, tossing and turning and worrying about money, knowing that I'd not got enough money in my bank to pay my lads' wages. Getting those overdue payment reminders every week from suppliers and wholesalers saying, Craig, you're 30, 60, 90 days behind. And then getting those VAT and tax bills and going to my bank account and thinking, where's all the money? I don't even have enough money in my bank to pay this quarter's VAT bill. And that horrible gut-wrenching feeling, knowing that you're working your knackers off, you're putting the graft in, you're putting the hours in, you're doing everything that you think you're doing right to support your business and your family, but then you get to that end of that week and you've not even got enough money left to pay yourself. There were times where I were literally down to living week to week, hand to mouth, and it were freaking tough back then. So I know exactly what it feels like to be grafting 6 days a week and have nothing to show for it at the end. I did this for 12 long, hard freaking years before I realised, hang on a minute, Craig, there's got to be an easier way than doing this. There's not just you that's in this position. There are other businesses that are doing really well. So what are they doing that you're not? Now, nobody ever sat me down and told me, Craig, these are the numbers in your business and this is what you need to understand and put in place to make sure that you make profit and have a positive cash flow. Nobody ever sat me down and said, Craig, listen, before you start your business, you need to make sure that you structure your payment terms to benefit you rather than your customer. Nobody ever did that. So I realised after 12 long, hard years, there's got to be a different way of sorting this money out. Because I'm getting the work in, I'm grafting, I'm doing a good job. Some months there were money in the bank and lots of it. But then by the time I paid my suppliers and my tax, paid myself, paid my wages, paid my overheads, all of a sudden that month, all the money's gone. And I'm sat there thinking, where the hell has the money gone? It's not there. Where's it gone? So I got off my arse and I thought, right, I'm going to learn it myself. I'm going to find out exactly what I do. I've got to stop winging it and stop moaning and stop bitching and stop whining that I've got no money and do something, take another course of action and do something different. Take a different approach, Craig, but work out what you've got to do. So I took control of my finances and started to make some big changes to the way in which I ran my business. Now, the rest is history. I never have sleepless nights anymore worrying about money. I make profit in all my businesses. I've nailed it. I know what I need to do. And on this episode, I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do. So one of the first things that I did was I sorted out my payment terms and I took back control of the relationships with my customers and my cash flow. So grab a notepad, grab a pen, grab your tablets, make some notes on what I'm going to teach you, and then I want you to do exactly what I did and what I teach my Inner Circle members, and that's get off your backsides and implement what I'm going to teach you. Now, for some of you, you are in debt. Let's just say how it is. For some of you, you're in debt because of the bad decisions and the bad actions that you've taken over those years. You're in debt. So by changing your cash flow situation, yes, it's going to fundamentally help you, but let's face it, if you're in debt, you've got to clear that debt. So that's going to take a little bit of time before you get top side of that. Then you'll start to see the profits. For others, you might not be in debt. You might be breaking even. Great, you're going to see results straight away. And for those that are listening to this and going, Craig, that used to be me too, but I've also changed things and now I don't worry about money. Brilliant. Keep doing what you're doing, but then bolt on what I'm going to share with you in this episode. So let's get stuck in. So let's start off with, well, what is negative cash flow, Craig, and why does this happen? And the negative cash flow is very simple. It basically means that you've got more money going out of your bank quicker than you've got money coming into your bank. Think about it. You've got more money going out of your bank quicker than you've got coming in, which means you've got negative cash flow problems. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for argument's sake, you've just done a job this month and you're going to invoice your customer for 100 grand. During this month, you've had to pay your labour, you've had to pay for the materials, you've had to pay your overheads, you've had to put money aside for your VAT, money aside for your tax, okay? So you're spending money. But it's okay because you're going to invoice the customer for 100 grand. But at the end of that month, when you invoice that customer for that 100 grand, their payment terms may well be, well, we're going to pay you 60 days after you've sent your invoice. It could be 30 days, 60 days. In some cases, some people say it's 90 days, which means although the money's due in, you've already shelled out that first month, but then you've got another month or two to bridge the gap while you're still having to pay wages for jobs, you're still having to pay materials for jobs, you're still having to pay overheads for your business to run. So you've got to bridge that gap for maybe another 30 or 60 days. So even though the money's due, you're not actually technically getting it for 60 to 90 days further down the line. So you're shelling out money when the 100 grand hits, that money is then swallowed up and it disappears because you've got to pay all of them materials. You've got to pay all them overheads. Are you with me? So you've got to make sure that your cash flow is sped up. So what we've got to do is we've got to speed up the flow of money coming in, and if necessary, slow down the money going out. And that way we're going to turn the tables. So now all of a sudden, you've got money coming in quicker than you're actually spending, which then helps to sort out the cash flow problem. Okay, Craig, I get that, but why is this happening to me? Why am I in a position where I've got this negative cash flow and cash is going out quicker than it's coming in? So let me share with you some, not all, but these are some of the classic mistakes that you'll be making, and this needs to be rectified. So let's just go through the list of things that I'm going to share with you. Cash flow challenges happen because of, number one, it could be a lack of leads. So your marketing's not working, you're spending money on marketing strategies that's not bringing in the leads, or it's bringing in the leads, but they're not what I call pre-sold ready to buy leads, they're time wasters. And you might have a seasonal business wherein, let's say plumbing and heating engineers. We know that plumbing and heating engineers from sort of like October time through to maybe March time, you're incredibly busy because everybody's switching the boilers on. But then come spring and summer, you've not got as many boiler installations because people are switching the boilers off. So you might have got a seasonal business where you've got a lack of leads in summer. Flip side of that, you could be a landscaper. In winter, you're dead as a doormat, but in spring and summer, you're busy as hell. So there's a lack of leads coming in that could cause the cash flow problem. Number 2, you do not understand the numbers in your business. You're winging it. You've got no idea of things like gross profit, net profit, retained profit, balance sheets, break-even figures, cash flowing. You don't know the numbers in your business. You're just winging it and keeping your fingers crossed that at the end of the week or the month, you've got enough money that's come in to pay everyone. Well, listen, you cannot build and grow and scale a business if you're winging it with your numbers. You're in the business to make profit. So you need to learn the numbers to make profit. Number 3, it could be that you're not pricing your jobs properly. Maybe you're not charging your labour out correctly because you don't know how to work out your hourly rate or your break-even figures. Maybe your material costs, you're out on your materials and you've allowed for X amount of materials and labour on a job, but in actual fact, the job's took longer, it took more materials up. Now it's swallowed up the bit of profit and now you've made a loss. Number 4, your overheads are too big for your business and they are crippling you. In other words, you might be making profit on the job, which we call gross profit, but your net profit is when you strip off all your overheads. And your overheads, your office, your lockup, your vans, your marketing, all the overheads and the direct costs of running your business may be too big for the size of business you are, so your overheads are sending you negative. Number 5, not knowing your correct gross or net profit margins. You have to understand what your gross profit and net profit margins are on your jobs. Because when we can work out these numbers, it may well be that you are providing a product or a service, but it's not making you any money. It's keeping you and your team busy, but it's not making you any money. And if we can identify the jobs that aren't making you the money, we can sack them off, concentrate our marketing on the jobs or the products or services that are making you the money, so that every day when you leave your home and get in your van to go to work, you're making the maximum amount of gross and net profit. But if you don't know those numbers, then you don't know what to market to make you the money. Now, if you don't know how to work out your gross and your net margins, I want you to, at the end of this episode, go and listen to episode number 7. Because on episode number 7, I share with you the exact numbers and the exact formula for you to work out your gross and net margins, and I explain it and give you the math in simple layman's terms. So head back to episode number 7 to learn how to work out your gross and net margins. Okay, the next one, time scales on materials and labour. So what I mean by this is, think of COVID. Think of that horrible time that we all went through in COVID. You gave people quotes for jobs before lockdown kicked in. But then lockdown kicked in. And what happened with the price of materials? They went sky high. They rocketed. So you might have well have booked jobs in. Let's say you're a builder and you booked an extension in, but you can't start it for another 9 or 12 months. You've honoured that price with that customer. But then during that 9 or 12 month, prices have gone ridiculously high material-wise, but you're still honouring a price from 9 months ago because your time scales are out. You should only honour your quotes for 30 days and then they're subject to change. Are you with me? The next thing that could be going wrong is you're not structuring your payment terms correctly. In other words, you're not taking enough money off the jobs at certain key stages, which means you've spent more on the job yourself than the customers actually paid you. So if the job stopped and went wrong or belly up, you've not got enough money off that job to pay your suppliers, pay your wages, pay your tax, because you've not structured your payment terms correctly. The next thing that could be going wrong is you've used your tax or your VAT money as an overdraft facility to bail you out because you don't know the numbers in your business. So your VAT bill comes in or your tax bill comes in and you haven't got any money because you've spent it. The next thing that could be going wrong is you've made some really bad and poor purchasing decisions based on emotion and not logic, such as, I fancy a new van. Let me just go and buy a new van. And you've bought a new van, but you shouldn't have bought it because you can't afford it. Or you've spent money on things like Google Ads because you're desperate to get leads in and you think there's a magic wand out there that automatically is going to generate your leads. So let me go and sink 3, 4, 5 grand, 10, 20 grand into Facebook, Google Ads, and it's not worked. Or, do you know what? Me and my family deserve a family holiday abroad. We haven't got the money, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and lump 7 grand up on a credit card because we deserve a break. Then poor purchasing decisions are going to come back and bite you in the arse from a cash flow point of view. The next thing that could be going wrong, you're living beyond your means, which means your personal overheads, i.e., your household overheads and the cost of you and your family to live are higher and bigger than your business is actually earning you. Are you with me? And when I look at personal overheads, I look at my personal life as being a business because it's true. In my personal life, I've got to bring money in and that money comes in out of my business. So that's like a sale. That's like sending an invoice to my business every month saying, right, I need some wages. So this is an invoice, pay me. It's like a business. And then just like a business, you've got personal overheads. You've got mortgages, you've got rent, you've got gas, water, electric, food costs, living costs. You've got all that. That's like an overhead. So you start stripping off your personal overheads from what you're actually paying yourself. And if your business is not earning you the money, but you're taking too much money out of the business to pay for your personal overheads because you're living beyond your means, your mortgage is too big, your rent's too big, your flash car that you've took out, these flash holidays that you're having, you're spending too much personally and the business is not paying you enough to cover it. Do you get where I'm going with this? So there's lots of different reasons why this is happening to you in your business. And what I've just rattled off now, that's not the full list. There's probably another 30 or 40 different things that you might be doing wrong in your business. But these are the things that I were doing wrong. When I had cash flow problems in my early days, I were making all these mistakes. So the first thing that I'm going to show you and we're going to start to do to sort this mess out is sort all that lot out. Because if we don't sort that out, we can't get out of the position that we're currently in. Now, there are tons of different ways in which we can improve our cash flow, but let's start by getting the basics right first. And it's really sad to see, and I know this for a fact, that the vast majority of business owners do not understand and have a clue about the numbers in the business. They just don't, and neither did I. And some of you don't even have the financial fundamentals in place, like strict payment terms and conditions to improve your cash flow and to help you protect your assets. So we're going to focus on 2 financial fundamentals that you must put in place now. And the first of those 2 are your payment terms. When you get to know how I coach, I talk about a phrase that I call owning all relationships. And what I mean by owning all relationships is this. If you, as the business owner, allow other people, for example, your customers or your team, to own your relationship, which means they're almost dictating to you what's going to happen in your business, then you're going to struggle. And years ago, I used to let my customers own my relationship because I wanted to be nice and I wanted to be that friendly builder and I wanted to be that builder that they could trust. So I'd be like nice to them all the time. I'd bend over backwards for them all the time. I'd be scared to ask for money and deposits and money up front because I was uncomfortable in doing that and I didn't have the confidence to do it. And in doing so, by shying away from not owning my customers' relationships, I gave the control over to them. And the minute your customer has control of your relationship, you are on the back foot. Because they're going to have you jumping through hoops. Don't get me wrong, some customers are great. And they're no bother and they pay on time and there's no issues. But come on, you well know that a lot of customers out there are a pain in the hole. Honestly, they're a pain in the backside, aren't they? The grief that they give you, the stupid questions that they ask you, the objections on why they're not paying this invoice, or hang on a minute, you've invoiced me for this, but I thought that were included in price. No, it's an extra. Straight away, you're on the back foot. So the first thing that you must do with any of your customers and your team is take ownership of that relationship. Because if you're in control of that relationship, right, you're in control of the cash flow and the money that's coming in. Leave that up to your customers and they'll pay you when they want, how they want, whenever they've got 5 minutes. They don't give a shit. They're not bothered about you. They just want you to do a job for them as quickly and as cheaply as possible. And then they're going to dictate to you when they're going to pay you. Well, that's got disaster wrote all over it. And that's exactly what used to happen to me. We would start a loft conversion or an extension, let's say 100 grand. And I'd be like, I could do with some money up front because I've got architects to pay, I've got building regs to pay, I've got planning permission to pay, I've got structural engineer to pay, I've got to get all skips, I've got to get mini digger, I've got all labour, I've got all my overheads, I've got all concrete to get, I've got all footing blocks, and I've got everything to get, right? And I wanted my customer to pay for that, but I didn't have it in me to say, look, you need to give me 20, 25 grand up front. I didn't know how to ask for it. I didn't know how to put that into a contract. I didn't know what to do. So idiot here would start a job and I'd be 20, 30, 40 grand knee deep in, let's call it debt, because that's what it is. You know how you owe that money out. You're shelling out for it straight away, but you've got no idea when the money's coming in. And then I get to a point where I think, fucking hell, I need to go and ask customer for some money. I've got no fucking money left in my bank. So then I go, oh, Mrs. Jones, is there any chance, please, you could pay me some money? Yeah, how much do you want, Craig? Can you pay me 25 grand? Ooh, 25 grand's a lot to pay to say you've only been on job, Craig, for 3 weeks. I tell you what I'll do. How about I give you 10? An idiot here used to go, oh, yeah, that's okay. And then I'd walk away thinking, I'm going to be screwed. I ain't got enough money to pay wages. I ain't got enough money to pay materials. Are you with me? I'd let them control and dictate my relationship, which then caused negative cash flow problems. Hence the reason why this podcast is all about you sorting out your payment terms. So what I did is I decided, right, enough's enough. I've got to grow a set of balls and I've got to take control of this relationship. So what I started to do is I started to put things in place where I took a big deposit up front. And then what I did is I'd structure payments at certain key stages throughout the job where I got money coming in. And then right at the end of the job, I would leave the least amount I could get away with at the end of the job. And that's not to be like unprofessional or anything, but that's to think, well, hang on a minute, what's the point of me leaving 20 grand on a final invoice at the end of the job. If the customer doesn't pay me, I'm 20 grand down. If I could get that 20 grand down to 500 quid at the end of the job, then I've had the money off the job and I've got positive cash flow. But I had to learn how to do that. And I started telling people what I was doing when I changed it and I started doing this. And people were saying, don't believe you, Craig. What? On a 100 grand job, you take 10% up front? Yeah, I take 10% up front. I make them pay me 10 grand as a deposit and we can't start the job for 9 months because we booked up in advance. What? So you've got 10 grand of somebody else's money 9 months up front in advance? Yeah, and I put that in an high interest account as well, gathering, are you with me? So I started to take ownership. And when I started explaining this to people, they were like, I don't believe you. I'm like, well, I'm doing it. It's working and I've changed my circumstances. You just need to start to do the same. But the biggest challenge here for many of you is you haven't got the confidence to own that relationship and dictate to your customers that, hang on a minute, this is how we work. If you want to work with our business, then these are our payment terms. And for those that don't like it, it's bye, next. Because if you implement what I'm teaching you with the marketing strategies on this podcast, you'll never have to worry about leads coming in. You'll have more than enough leads coming in to say bye to an handful of people, handful of potential customers. So when you think about it, I want you to think about this. You are not your customer's bank manager. Let me say it again. You are not your customer's bank manager. Why is it up to you, just because you're a business, why is it up to you to finance a stranger's project or job? Because let's face it, unless you're working for family and friends, and oh, by the way, let's face it, I think we could do a full podcast on that, why you shouldn't be working for family and friends, because they'd take advantage of you, but that's another podcast episode. But what I'm saying is, most of the customers that you or clients that you bring in are strangers, right? So why on God's earth are you financing a stranger's project? It is not down to you to use your savings, to use your personal or business savings to finance a customer's project. And I don't care whether you're fitting a 3 grand boiler or building a £3 million house. It's not up to you to finance the customer's job. If they want the job doing themselves, then they've got to finance and pay for the job themselves. Why should they be relying on you and your money to bail them out? No. If you want the job doing, Mrs. Jones, you pay for your own job. Why should I use my holiday money? Why should I use my VAT money to pay for your job? You pay for it yourself. Surely that's what happens. You should not have the risk. The risk should be with the customer, not your business. You're going to provide a service. So why should you pay for that service and have the risk of that service and have the risk of not getting paid and then you're out of pocket? That's just crazy, isn't it? But I'm guessing for the vast majority of trades or construction business owners that are listening to this right now, the vast majority of you will not be taking deposits. You won't be taking stage payments. You won't be leaving the final payment to the smallest denominator you can be. You'll be giving all the risk to yourself, and that's got to stop. Your business is not a charity. You are in the business of making money. You've got to maintain a positive cash flow, or otherwise you will end up with sleepless nights. Now, if you are not confident enough to start to own these relationships, then I'd question why you're in business. Because business is all about relationships. It's relationships with your customers. It's relationships with your suppliers. It's your relationships with your employees or your subcontractors. And in my businesses, I own all of them. Nobody owns my relationship. I own them. So if you're not confident and you want to start setting these boundaries with your customers, I've got another podcast episode that I want you to go and have a listen to at the end of this one. And that is episode number 8, which is setting your boundaries and rules with your customers and your employees. And in that episode, I go through how to structure and own those relationships. So let me take you through what you need to do to sort out that cash flow issue and set your payment terms and safeguard yourself as much as you can from any potential customer trying to pick loopholes or trying to pick holes in your contracts or T's and C's or whatever it is that you're providing them. You've got to make sure that your business is bulletproof and that you've covered yourself and your assets and everything, and that you give people or give your customers all the information that they require to enable them to pay you on time without any disputes. Because some of you, I'm guessing, will be sending text messages with quotes on, or your quote looks like it's been written on the back of a fag packet, right? All that lot's got to stop. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is, what does your proposal say and look like? I call it a proposal. You might call it a quote or an estimate. But what does that proposal give the customer? Because I'm one of these who realizes that actually your proposal, quote or estimate is actually part of your sales process. And that document is going to help potentially sway that customer to use you or not use you. So let's say we've got a customer that's not really concerned about buying on price. So they don't want the cheapest job, they want the best job. And you've sent out your proposal on a typed up, letter-headed document and you've just emailed it to them. Or you're sending out your proposal on something like Xero or QuickBooks, where you're using the estimating section within your accountancy software to put something together that looks okay. Or you might be using something like ServiceMate, where you can pull proposals and quotes together in ServiceMate, but you've got some software that you're creating your proposal in. Or you do what I do, and you use tools such as, write these down, Better Proposals, Beautiful.ai, Quotient, PandaDoc. You're using software like that makes your proposals absolutely wow your customers. Because in them type of software that are designed to build stunning proposals, quotes and estimates, inside that sales document, because it is, remember, it's part of your sales process, you can make your proposals, quotes and estimates look like a website. You can make them look like a brochure. And included in there, you can have amazing images. You can have an introduction video embedded into your proposal. You could have all your video testimonials and all your social proof. You can pull all your reviews in. You can pull signatures in so they sign it online. You can pull your terms and conditions in. You can pull all that lot into this software that makes your proposals stand out and wow your customers. So Mrs. Jones has now got these 3 proposals in front of her, and she's not buying on price. She's got one sent to her on an email, right? Or one sent to her on a letterhead. Basic, bog standard, or even worse, a WhatsApp message or text. She's got another one where you've used ServiceMate or QuickBooks, which looks okay, but in all honesty, they're boring as hell. Or you've got one from someone like Better Proposals that looks absolutely stunning, that's got everything inside it, and you wow your customers. And on Better Proposals, it also alerts you and lets you know when the customers opened the proposal. It tells you how long they spent on each page of that proposal. So you can then make that follow-up call because you know that they've opened the proposal. Are you with me? It's amazing as a sales tool. So Mrs. Jones has sat now and she's thinking, well, I got on well with them all. I liked all 3. But having looked at these 3 proposals and looked at this one, which is the one that's been done on Better Proposals, and the level of detail and the payment terms are inside it, the T's and C's are inside it, the contracts are inside it, the customer testimonials are inside it, the videos are inside it, the reviews are inside it, and I can just click a button and electronically sign it. Now I'm going with them because they're super professional. So the detail that you put into your quotes and proposals and estimates has to be off the freaking scale. Because if you're going to be offering a service that's more than your competitors, you've got to demonstrate why that customer's paying more for your service. And that all comes down to your branding. It comes down to your marketing. It comes down to those automated emails and texts that the customer gets. It comes down to how you sell yourself when you're doing your home survey using NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, that I'll teach you about. It comes down to the quality of your proposals. It comes down to your payment terms. It comes down to all that. So number one, you've got to make sure that your proposals have got absolutely everything inside them so that customer knows exactly your rules of the game, knows exactly how your business works. They can see your payment terms, T's and C's, all that lot are all inside it. And I'm guessing for most of you listening to this, your proposals do not look like that. So if they don't and they haven't got all that information on, there are grey areas, aren't there? Oh, I thought this were included. Oh, I thought that were included. Oh, this took longer. The job took 3 weeks longer, so I'm not paying you. All that lot. You've got to mitigate all that inside your proposal document. Okay? So number one, you've got to get detailed proposals. Number two, you have to have terms and conditions of business. What are your terms and conditions of dealing with you and your business? And if your terms and conditions aren't there for them to see and read and acknowledge and sign, then you're leaving yourself wide open for exploitation. So you've got to have a set of T's and C's, not that you download a template off Google for £5 and start using a template. They're no good. Don't go and download your competitors' T's and C's off their website because their business is different to you. They've got different staff to you. They've got different ways in which they work to you. They've got different payment terms to you. Their business is different to yours. You need your own terms and conditions writing up that safeguards you from every eventuality on stopping a customer from paying you. From things like weather, because let's face it, if you're working outside, you're on an extension, you're a roofer working on a roof, you're a renderer rendering somebody's house, you know that you're at the disposal of the elements, right? You know the elements are going to dictate how long that job takes. If you've got, I'm sure you've had customers moaning and groaning at you that the job's taking too long. And even though an idiot can see, hang on a minute, it's been fucking snowing, raining for the last 3 months. How on earth can I get, they don't care. They don't care about you. All that lot has got to go into your T's and C's. Your payment terms, which we're going to come on to, all that lot needs to go into your T's and C's. How do you want people to pay you? What happens if they pay you late? What happens if there's a dispute? All that lot needs to go into your T's and C's. Now, if you don't know how to create your terms and conditions, or you don't know how to put subcontractor agreements together, I want you to, at the end of this podcast, go and check out episode number 5, because on episode number 5, I interview lawyer Michael Long, and me and Michael go through how to create bulletproof terms and conditions and subcontractors agreements to safeguard your business. So head over to episode 5 to get that. Number 3, it may well be that what you do in your business, actually, you need a contract between you and your client. Now, this is more geared up towards commercial clients as opposed to domestic, but you might have to have a separate document, which is a contract between you and a client. Again, that contract needs to be bulletproof. It's separate from your terms and conditions. Your terms and conditions is how your business runs. Your contract with your customer or your client is all around what's involved in the job and timescales. Maybe you've got certain key stages of a commercial job where a surveyor comes out and surveys the job to release a payment to you. You've got to make sure that you've got contracts specifically if you're in the commercial sector. Number 4, payment terms. We've already alluded to it that your payment terms have got to be spelled out up front. They'll go into your terms and conditions, they'll go into your contract, they'll go into your detailed proposal, but your payment terms have got to be explained up front to your customer. You cannot be starting jobs whereby you haven't negotiated or agreed, or they've not agreed to your payment terms. Now, I understand some people listening to this, you'll be going, Craig, I'm doing a 50 quid job that's going to take me half an hour. Do I really need payment terms for that? Well, yes, you do, and they'd be written into your T's and C's as a standard document. But Craig, do I really need to take a deposit before I start a 50 quid job? Do I really need to take an interim payment after half an hour? And do I really need to invoice them at the end of the job half an hour later? No, of course you don't. It's 50 quid. Your business is not going to go bust or you're going to go pop for the sake of someone not paying you 50 quid. But then there'll be jobs that you do that are bigger jobs. There'll be other trades doing bigger jobs, from heating engineers doing boilers for 2 or 3 grand, to roofers doing re-roofs to 5 to 10 grand, to builders doing extensions to 300 grand, to new build house builders building houses for £1 million. You've got to make sure that your payment terms are in place and your customer agrees and signs to those payment terms. So how do you structure payment terms? Let me tell you what I do and what I coach. Number 1, any job that is over £1,000 in value, and you set the value, it don't have to be 1,000, you could make it 500 quid, you could make it 2 grand if you wanted. But I have a general rule of thumb. Any job that's more than £1,000, you have to pay a deposit. And that deposit needs to be explained to the customer. Why are they paying that deposit? What is that deposit going towards? Because nobody just wants to give anyone a deposit. They want to know why I'm giving you that deposit. So, with my loft conversion company, we would say, Mrs. Jones, we need a 10% deposit from you. So if we're doing a job for 50 grand, it's 5 grand. We need a 10% deposit, which will be £5,000. Now, Mrs. Jones, let me just explain to you why we take this deposit and what it goes towards covering. Number 1, your deposit is going to cover you for your installation to be booked into our diary first and foremost. Number 2, your deposit is going to go towards the cost of paying for the architect's drawings, the building regulations, the planning permission, and the structural engineer that we need to start your project. Because without those, we can't start your project. Now, the deposit doesn't cover the full cost of that. We're also going to contribute to that, but that's why we ask for a deposit up front. Is that okay with you, Mrs. Jones? And when Mrs. Jones understands why she's paying the deposit and what the deposit is for, then they're like, I get it, Craig, now. Yeah, you can't start the job, can you, until you've got the drawings, blah, 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 blah. So you need to come up with some spiel like that you say to your customer, where you say to them, your deposit covers you for your installation being booked into our diary, and it also goes towards covering the costs of A, B, and C. It doesn't cover the full cost. We contribute towards it, but it goes towards that. And when you explain the deposit like that, the customers understand. So number 1, You have to take a deposit. Number 2, I want you to fast forward to the end of the job. And I want you to think about that final invoice that you pay at the end of that the customer pays you at the end of that job. I want you to think about what is the least amount of money that you are prepared to leave on the table at the end of the job. Because if you're doing an extension and you're leaving 20 grand for the final payment and the customer has a dispute with you and you haven't got a contract, you didn't have a detailed proposal, you didn't have any terms and conditions, you didn't spell out your payment terms, and there's a dispute, that 20 grand is going to have a massive negative impact on your cash flow. Massive. So how I structure the final payment is I think, hang on a minute, what is the amount that I'm prepared to leave on the table at the end of the job that if I didn't get paid for that, it wouldn't make a great deal of difference to my business because I've already had enough money off the job to be able to cover all my costs, all my labour, material. I've got enough profit off the job. So if they don't pay me £1,000 on a 100 grand job, it's not going to kill me or my business. Okay? So you need to think about in your business or for that particular product or service that you are offering, what is the minimum amount you're prepared to leave on that table? And that's what your final payment is. Now, sat in between your deposit and your final payment, for the bigger jobs, you're going to need some interim payments. And again, these interim payments, you decide on how much they pay at what stage they pay it. So when I was building lofts before I sold my company, we would have 4-stage payments. We'd have the deposit, we'd have the final payment, which was literally £500 at the end of a 100 grand job. We'd just leave £500. But then there's the bit in the middle. There's the bit that's what's going to tie me over on this 8-9 week job. So what we did is we brought 2 interim payments in. We brought an interim payment in on week number 2, and we tied that in with when the building inspector came out and inspected all the steels and the floor structure. On the first inspection, we tie that payment in with that. The second interim payment would be when the building inspector came out to check all the insulation. In other words, before everything was covered with plasterboard, the building inspector would come out and make another visit. So we tied that payment in with that visit. So the customer knew that they were only paying for the work that had been inspected. But what we did is on that first interim payment, we made that a huge payment because that's got to see us through from month number 2 all the way through to from week number 2 to week number 7. So somebody's got to pay for all the materials, somebody's got to pay for all the labour, somebody's got to pay for all the overheads during that 5 weeks. I'm not paying for it. The customer finances their own jobs, remember. So we structured that payment to allow us to get a large payment off the customer that then saw us through to week number 7. On week number 7, the second interim payment would kick in and we get another payment. So by week number 7 of a 9-week job, we'd had all the value off the job other than the £500 that we left to the end of the job. So throughout the entire job, we'd always got more money off our customers than we'd actually done on the job. And you need to do the same. And this is not being unethical. This is just how business runs. You need to make sure that you've got as much money off that job as you can to allow you to pay for your labour, your materials, your overhead, your tax, your VAT, and have some profit left over if the customer ever said, I want you to stop the job. You need to have factored them figures in to make sure that you're not out of pocket. Are you with me? Now, some of you again will be sitting there going, well, Craig, I can't do, I'm on a 1 or 2 day job. Can I really take an interim payment? I don't need to take two, but could I take one? Absolutely. If you say to your customer, look, we take a deposit. At the end of day one, we take a payment. And then at the end of day two, when we finish the job, it's a final payment. If you want to structure it that way, then structure it that way. But I'm a firm believer in the more you go, oh, it'll be all right, it's only a week's job. I'm telling you now, the minute somebody decides to not pay you, you'll wish you'd have put this in place. You are not a charity, you are a business. You've got wages, overheads and materials to pay. You've got your personal overheads to pay. You cannot afford for people to not pay you. So you've got to structure your payment terms in that way. Now, if you don't, and you continue to run your business, winging it without not knowing the numbers in your business, at some point you're going to come unstuck. And for me, I've worked with many trades and construction businesses that have said, Craig, I've been in business, mate, for 10 years. I've never had any terms and conditions. I don't have detailed proposals like you tell me to do. I don't have any contracts. I don't take deposits. And customers have always paid me, so why do I need to do this? Well, it goes back to what I've already said. The minute you get one or two customers that don't pay you, all of a sudden, you're in the shit. And then you'll be wishing, do you know what? I should have protected my asset and myself and my business, and I should have had these in place. And then you'll be kicking yourself saying, I should have put them in. Remember, you are not there to finance strangers' jobs. They finance it themselves so that it covers the risk of you on that job at any time, making sure that you've got enough money to cover your costs. Now, I said there were two things that we were going to focus on. We've just focused on payment terms. The second one is 4 bank accounts. 4 bank accounts. And what I'm going to share with you now is how and why you need to be separating your money when it comes into your business into a minimum of 4 different bank accounts. Because for many of you, what you'll be doing is you'll have one bank account which is like a current account, and all the money that's coming into your business from all them invoices that you're sending out comes into one bank account. And if you're not then taking that money out of that bank account and putting it into different pots, let's say, into different accounts, you're relying on your business being run from one bank account, and that is near on impossible. Because think about it. If you've got one bank account and all the money's coming in, that's great, it's all in one account, but you've got absolutely no idea at any time what's yours and what's not yours. Let me give you an example. Let's say you've got 100 grand in bank and you sat there thinking, this is great, I've got 100 grand in bank. You know that you've got materials to pay. Materials have got to come out of that bank account. You've got wages to pay, you've got overheads to pay, you've got taxes to pay, and all of a sudden that 100 grand is now diminished down to 20. But you don't see that because you're not tracking your numbers and you don't know what's got to come out of that bank account. So you look at that 100 grand and you make one of them emotional, poor decisions. And you say to your husband, wife, partner, girlfriend, whatever, listen, I've got 100 grand in bank. I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's go on holiday. Let's take the kids to Disney. Let's go and have our dream holiday. So what do? You go and spend 15 grand on a holiday and you take off. And no, but listen, everybody deserves holidays. I'm not saying you shouldn't be doing it. What I'm saying is you need to have the money to do it. So you look at 100 grand, you spend 15 grand on a holiday, and then you get back and all of a sudden, all your wages go out, all your overheads go out, all your materials go out, you've got to pay your VAT, you've got to pay your corporation tax, and all of a sudden, you're overdrawn. And you're overdrawn because you've looked at that 100 grand and thought, I'm in the money, but in reality, you never were. because you've got all your money sat in one bank account and you've got no idea what's your suppliers, what's the taxman's, what's HMRC's. You've got no idea because it's all sat in one flipping bank account. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to make sure that you've got 4 different accounts, or with some of these online banking banks such as Starling, which is a great bank, by the way, Starling Bank, you don't have to set up 4 accounts. You've got your current account, and then in Starling Bank, you can set up what you call pots. They call them pots, like money pots, where you just set up a pot and you transfer money into that pot. Either way, you need 4 different pots or 4 different accounts, okay? Then what I'm going to ask you to do is this. When you get paid from a job, and you could do this per job, or you could say, well, I'm not going to do it per job, I'll do it per week. Or worst case scenario, you do it per month. You don't let it go on beyond a month. What you're going to do every job, every week, or at the end of every month, you are going to transfer money out of your current account into different accounts or pots so you know whose money is what. And you're going to get organised with that money. So the 4 accounts I need you to set up are as follows. Number 1, a current account, which I'm guessing you've all got anyway. You need a current account, and that is the one that your customers are going to pay all the invoices and pay you. It all goes into that current account. Number 2, you're going to have a tax account / pot set up. And in that account, you are going to put all of the tax money that you owe into that account. Now, if you're running QuickBooks or Xero or Free Agent or Sage, or you've got an accountancy package, and it's up to date, i.e. all your sales invoices are on and all your purchase invoices are on and your accounts are up to date, you'll be able to run a report per job, per week, per month that'll tell you how much tax you need to pay. And this can be the self-assessment tax that you need to pay. Every January, you've got to pay your self-assessment tax. Or if you're a limited company, at the end of your year end, if you've made a profit, you've got corporation tax to pay. You're going to run a report, and it's going to tell you how much money you need to put into that tax account. And then you put the money into the tax account and you leave it. You do not touch it. The 3rd account I want you to set up is a VAT account. A VAT account. Now, I appreciate there might be people listening to this podcast that are sole traders, and you might not be turning over more than 85 grand, so you're not VAT registered yet. But at some point, you are going to go VAT registered, and you are going to grow your business, so you need to be listening in. For those that are VAT registered, you know what I'm talking about. You set up a VAT pot or a VAT account. And then here's what I want you to do. The 20% that you are charging to your customer or your client on all of your invoices, that 20% of VAT that you know is not yours, when they pay you that invoice, I want you to take the entire 20% of VAT out of your current account and put it into your VAT account. The full 20%. Now, I know what some of you are going to be saying. Craig, we don't pay the VAT man 20%, do we? Because out of that 20%, we can offset all of our purchase invoices against it. So it might end up being that you only pay 12% or 17% of that money to the VAT man because you're reclaiming your VAT back on your purchase invoices. I get that. But if you put all 20% to one side, you know that you've always got more than enough money to pay the VAT man, right? You're never going to be scrimping for the VAT. Now, the 4th account or pot I want you to set up is what we call a savings account. It's a savings account. And then here's what I'm going to ask you to do. The VAT money that is now left over in your VAT account, because you've put all 20%, haven't you, into that VAT account, but you've only paid 12%, 15, 16% of that money to the VAT man, you've now got surplus VAT sat in your account. In other words, you've got some savings. So at the end of every quarter, whatever's left in your VAT account, once you've paid the VAT man, you take that lump of money out and you put it into your savings account. And that is where we're going to start to build some reserves for a rainy day. We use the VAT money left over and then put it into the savings account. So now when you think about it, we're getting a little bit smart with our money. The money comes into the current account. We run a report on QuickBooks or Free Agent or Xero, and it says, right, out this month, out of all that 100 grand that you've had in, you need to, these are hypothetical figures, by the way, you need to put 15 grand into your tax account. Right, take the 15 grand out of your current, put it into your tax. At the end of the month, you're going to say, right, out of what's left, this is the amount of VAT that we've charged this month. And that might be 30 grand. Right, take that 30 grand out of the current account and put it into your VAT account. And then once the VAT's been paid, the leftover in your VAT account comes out and gets put into your savings account. And that is how I'm going to suggest that you start off managing your money. So at that point, you've always got your tax money. At that point, you've always got the VAT money. At that point, you can see you've got a little nest egg starting to build in your savings account. And you can then look at your current account and say, hang on a minute, I have got 100 grand in that current account. And I know that 100 grand is mine. Because the tax money's been put to one side, the VAT money's been to one side, and I've actually now got a savings with 26 grand in it. So I know that I can now take some more money out of that current account and put it into my savings account. Because if you've got 100 grand in your current account and everything's covered, you can then put some more money into your savings account, can't you? And that's what I want you to start to do. Structure splitting your money up so you know where your money's going. Now, I'm going to recommend a book that you get. And this book is called Profit First. It's called Profit First. It's a fantastic book that teaches you in depth exactly what I'm saying right now. Now, in Profit First, in their strategy, they say set up, it's either 7 or 8 or 9 different bank accounts or pots. I mean, they really go to town. Now, for me and my businesses, we don't do that. We just stick with the 4 accounts, the 4 pots, and it works. And for my inner circle members that go away and set this up, it works for them. What I'm saying is go and listen to Profit First. It's an audio book, or you can buy it as a paperback, hardback book, right? Go and listen to it. And their theory of what they share is the same theory of me, where you're splitting your money up. However, they've got more accounts and more pots. Now, if you want to set up 8, 9 accounts and pots and you feel as though that's going to work for you in your business, then fill your boots, go and do it. What I'm saying is you need a minimum of 4. And I think you can see now hear now from what I'm saying on this podcast, why these 4 bank accounts work and why they get you super organised with the money that's coming into your business. Now, I want to leave you with this thought, and that is this. I want you to think about your business being a vehicle, right? Pick whatever vehicle, car, train, it's up to you. And every day when you leave your home and get into your van or your company car and you drive off to go and work for those 8, 9 hours, For some of you, it might be 12, 15, 18 hours a day because you've not structured your business right yet. But whatever you're doing, whether you're on the tools or you're off the tools already and you've got a team and you're going to your office, however it is, I want you to think about your business being a vehicle. And that vehicle that you are currently in is designed to provide you and your family with a financial reward. Now, whether you pay yourself weekly or monthly, at the end of that week or at the end of that month, that vehicle that you are in has got to have brought enough money into that business to be able to afford to pay you a financial reward. And I want that financial reward for you and your business to be as high or as much as it can be. And I'm not talking about being unethical. I'm not talking about ripping people off. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. I'm talking about building a vehicle that's going to provide you and your family with a financial reward where you can achieve your dreams, your goals. And I appreciate not everybody is motivated by money. The goal for everyone is not to be a millionaire. The goal for everyone is not to be the richest man in the graveyard. I get that. But ultimately, you are in business. And that vehicle that you step into every day has got to pay you a financial reward that is worth your time and effort, that can afford to pay your wages, your materials, your overheads, your VAT and your tax, and have the maximum amount left over for you and your family. And that maximum amount of money that's left over then determines and dictates everything that you do as a family. It determines the house you live in, the car you drive, the holidays you have, the clothes that you wear, the material things that you want to buy, the future success of your children, saving pots for your kids as they grow up, paying for your daughter's wedding. Whatever that means to you, your business provides you a reward. And I want that financial reward to give you everything that you and your family deserve and want to achieve in your lives. And if you're sat there right now listening to this podcast, whether you're walking dog, whether you're in the gym, whether you've got me on your Bluetooth in your van right now, wherever you're listening to this from, if you're sat there thinking, do you know what, Craig? I'm not in a position where I've got my dream home. I'm not in a position where I've got my car. I'm not in a position where I can afford to pay for my daughter's wedding. I'm not in a position where I'm building up a little nest egg and savings. I'm not in a position where I can book a family holiday to wherever your dream holiday is. I'm not. If you're saying I'm not there yet, then something needs to change with the finances within your business. Because I can teach you and show you all how to make more money. It's easy. I mean, first thing to do is stick your prices up by 10% today. Do that. There's nothing to stop you other than your negative mindset and your limiting beliefs going, ooh, if I stick my prices up by 10% today, my customers aren't going to pay it because I'm already more than my competitors. Listen, rubbish. I can teach you how you're thousands more than your competitors and you'll still win business. So if you sat there and you haven't got what you want, what's going to change? Something needs to change, and that what needs to change is your mindset. You need to own them relationships. You need to get these payment terms in place, and you need to start splitting your money up. And that's where you need to start. So what actions are you immediately going to take away from this podcast? Because there's no point in listening to these podcasts and you going away and taking no action or little action, because nothing's going to change. You've got to submerge yourself into your business. You've got to be passionate, dedicated to your business. You've got to be able to do what other people aren't prepared to do to achieve success in your business. The results that you're looking for is in the work that you are not doing. So what actions? Commit to yourself now. Right, Craig, you're right. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go away and do what? What is it that you're going to go away and do? And what I'd love you to do is head over to our Trades Freedom Club Facebook group and community. Come and tell me that you've listened to this episode and tell us in the Facebook group, what is it? Commit. Right, Craig, tag me in. Craig, I've listened to this episode and this is what I'm going to go away and do. And let me and let the fellow members in our community hold you accountable. If you are not a member of our Trades Freedom Club Facebook group and community, it's a thriving and positive and supportive group of tradesmen and women that every day are there to help and support each other on our journey. It's not one of these groups that you join where your work gets slagged off and they have a pop at you and you put a question in and you get ripped to shreds. That's not what this group's all about. We've built a culture and a community and the most supportive trades community out there. Come and join us. Click the link in the description of this episode and come and join us over in our Trades Freedom Club community. So, thank you for listening to this episode. I really hope that you're taking value away from it, and I look forward to catching up with you in our Facebook group. I'll see you at the top.